Hello and welcome everybody to today's show on Z-Axis TV, where I'm Leah Zalams and I'm your host. And I am an executive coach working with primarily with women in leadership as business owners, and working with you to help you with sales, leadership and mindset skills. And this series of interviews is with experts in the field of all things sales and marketing. And today we have with us Dale Turnell. Welcome, Dale.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Yes. Now, just to put a little bit of context with Dale here, Dale has something like 4 decades, and do correct me if I'm wrong, Dale, but 4 decades in criminal justice work, also hailing with a PhD in psychology, and we'll talk a little bit about what your thesis was worked on as well. And you also have a significant background in interviewing and interrogating. And so your service to people and working with human behavior is just extraordinary. So I'm really keen to hear how you've brought all that into your current career, which is quite different and quite left field from where you've spent most of your career. But here you are working as in business development, in sales and marketing with business owners, with coaches like myself, consultants and network marketers, to help us find more of the right people to talk to and to educate and connect with. And so today's theme really is all about how we use our skills and our expertise, how you have brought all that together to now be using all of that human behavior skill and the skills you've developed in technology as a digital marketer. Now, this is what really stands out for me, Dale, is that you are bringing these two worlds together in a phenomenally exciting way. So I'm wanting to dig into, I guess, how you think, how you're doing it. What problems do you see that you are solving right now in the work that you do? So that might be a great place to start. We've got about 30 minutes together. And so maybe if we start with who you serve and what problem do you primarily solve in the business that you are in today?
Well, thanks a lot for the introduction. That was pretty nice. You know, the bottom line with human beings is that most humans like to be liked. So there's this nurturing that has to go on to be between two parties. You have to have each other like each other in order to be able to do business. So one of the things that I learned over the years in dealing with the general population, so to speak, is that when you have antagonism, when you have this conflict, you can't get through that conflict to communicate. So you have to reduce that conflict, and you have to be able to engage in some kind of communication. Now, in almost every country in the world right now, the political basis that we have is a major conflict. If we ever get to the point where two sides that are so diametrically opposed can actually communicate with each other, we'll solve a lot of problems. And that's what I learned as being a police officer for so many years, and being I was an investigator. I worked at every level, local, state, federal. I worked across the board in all of these areas. And that one issue is the key to being able to communicate with someone. If I completed an interrogation or an interview of somebody, if I couldn't communicate with them, then I would never get any answers from them. So that was the key. That was my key takeaway after about 50 years of doing this whole process. It all boils down to, I need to be able to communicate. So that was the first thing that I had to overcome. The second thing was nobody
But I'm
does.
also,
Oh, go ahead.
just if I can just point out there too, Dale, that what I'm also hearing is that you took full responsibility for that being your problem to solve, how you could communicate with them. You weren't, I'm sure you were wanting to perhaps change the behaviors of some of these people you were interviewing with as well, but it wasn't, your intent wasn't to change them. You were working on how you could get better to meet them where they are.
Well, I put them in a position where I'm asking something of them. It's not the other way around. So if I'm asking something of somebody who I'm interviewing, I need to be able to get on a base level with them to where there's a certain level of trust. Now, they may not like me. They may not trust me because I was carrying a badge and a gun. But what I could do is I could go beyond that and say, okay, let's find the common point and let's start from there. And what I found is the common point was nearly every time was just that one level. It was respect. If I demonstrated a respect for the individual that I was interviewing, I immediately got some level of trust. And of course, it's the trust that people will deal with. So I carried this into the business area because it was kind of a natural progression. But so many marketers, so many business people, they're out there selling their products. And when they sell their products, it's like a jackhammer effect. If somebody comes to me and says, I've got the greatest thing in the world, and it's only $50, and I want to sell you this, and this is what it'll do for you. Well, the fact that I've never heard of this individual, I don't know who they are. Why would I expect any kind of trust relationship? It doesn't work. And so That's where you have to develop that relationship first before you ever end up talking about technology or your sales or anything that you're presenting.
Well, even as you were speaking there too, Dale, because my corporate background is 3 decades in healthcare IT sales, so all kinds of technology sales, and the more excited I would get about the product, the less I would sell, for exactly that reason, because I would be jumping in to why I was so excited about this widget or this machine, and I completely sometimes would forget that first step of create connection and the respect and trust aspects. And I wonder if that's what you've seen too in transitioning from being in the justice system and now into a business environment where you are dealing with all kinds of like people, and just where you see those parallels of the basics of communications, the universal laws of the respect and the trust, and as you said initially too, that as humans we do like to be liked, and so so that trust, like, respect triangle holds firm across all industry, I think, doesn't it?
Well, it does, and I have to admit that when I first started in the business side of it, I retired. I want to think I retired actually in 2015, and idle hands. I didn't know what to do, so I decided, well, let me go into business. I had listened to a lot of people. I went through a lot of training. I developed, a routine to be able to communicate people, to sell them widgets. But what I didn't do, nobody talked to me about being trustworthy, building this relationship. So as I got into it, that was the first thing I identified. Well, why would I try to make this work when I'm working in a street and I'm doing a criminal investigation and I'm trying to interview people, but I wouldn't bring that to business? Because basically you're doing the same thing. You're investigating, you're trying to find out who you're dealing with. You're trying to find out what motivates them. You're trying to establish a relationship. Why wouldn't you bring all that across to the business relationship? And that's when I woke up. I go, oh man, I've been doing this for 50 years. Why didn't I start this? And then as time goes on, then you get, particular levels of training that help, cement that factor. But I also found that there's so much internet garbage out there that people can become overwhelmed trying to get the training and the information that they need. And it really comes down to a very simple factor. You have to build that relationship. And I've talked to marketers that come in and say, well, don't waste your time. Go right to them. Ask them if they're interested in this project. There's millions of people out there. If they say no, you kick them to the curb and you move to the next one. Well, I don't care how you do that. You have A, lost somebody who's a potential connection and a potential friend. And B, you just wasted a certain amount of your day doing that by kicking them to the curb. And they may be a major resource. So that doesn't work.
So tell us a little bit about your strategy then of how you are marrying up, because I guess the whole evolution or revolution of internet marketing, and particularly with the pandemic these last 2 years, a lot of businesses have really come kicking and screaming and into digital marketing because the face-to-face option was taken away. And so, and I guess this is where, there is, how do you find your way in all of that? And I guess that's one of the challenges, is that there's a lot of things calling out to business owners, coaches, consultants, network marketers, pick me, I'll solve your problem. So I'm really keen to hear how you've cut through that to land where you're at, and perhaps you could share what your business is today so we can put that in the frame as well.
Well, I moved from one business to the other. I wrote books. I was an author, so I tried to sell my books. I did okay with them, but it didn't ring my chimes. It wasn't really where I wanted to go with it. And so through the progression of my business growth, I actually became a network marketer. I had a device, an air purification device that I was selling. It actually is nothing like it. It's top on the market, but it's expensive. And as we ended up with our inflations situation that we're all undergoing through right now, fewer and fewer people could afford the price tag that this item was on. So I said, I would get the connections, I would get the meetings and the appointments, but I wasn't completing in the sales process. I wasn't completing the actual sale of the device. I would, you'd sell one or two, but you sure weren't making a lot of money at it. And one of the things I figured out was that in this entire process, because of the way the market is right now, the company that I was working for is still trying to sell these items like the old days of Tupperware and Amway. They were trying to deal with person-to-person sales. Unfortunately, we're no longer there. You can't be a vacuum cleaner salesman and go door to door anymore, knock on doors and expect to earn a living. So because of the internet, because of the pandemic, we had to learn a different way to do this. So what I thought was, I transitioned this into a point of saying, instead of selling the widgets, there are people out there who are very good at it. But the problem with network marketing and network sales is that you lose your warm leads fairly quickly. So once you've exhausted your friends and family and your neighbors and everybody else, nobody wants to hear from you face to face.
And that's the same with most consulting businesses, services businesses as well. The word of mouth referral, as we know, is gold, right?
Yeah.
And particularly the higher the product, like I sell high-end executive coaching programs that typically companies will pay for, but business owners are really stretched to invest that kind of money when they're just trying to keep the lights on, right?
That's right.
So it's the same thing. It's the cost of the investment, but also the method, the sales process. So we're thrown into this world of the internet. So I think, yeah, it is network marketers are feeling it, and coaches, consultants. You know, you'd be hard pressed to find a lot of coaches who have actually got a full book of clients doing it, but relying on referrals right now.
Well, the word of mouth, no matter where you're at, the word of mouth marketing is always superior because you have an immediate a recommendation and a referral right there in front of you. And so that's always the most powerful. But what I found through LinkedIn, and I use almost exclusively LinkedIn, the LinkedIn platform, because I'm able to go and I'm actually able to find these leads and prospects based on what I want them to be. In other words, I know what my market is. I know really who needs the assistance, and I've actually carried it even further than to network marketers. I provide them not only the lead generation, but I can also develop, their communications over, a period of several weeks to the point where those people will ask for appointments. Now, once the appointment is made, it's up to the individual to close the deal. I don't get involved in that. But someone who is a coach, someone who's a network marketer, someone, even a business or sales business owner, they get to a point where they say, I'm running out of leads and I'm trying to go back and capture my old leads, but they've already been down that road. That doesn't do them any good.
Exactly. And I think the other thing, and I know I find this myself, is how much time does all this take? How much time do I have to find the people, to learn the skills, to learn the system, and then do the email nurturing and the email marketing? Now, I do have a newsletter that I publish weekly, and it usually is a piece of content that I'm producing. So I've become a content producer, because that's how, firstly, I really enjoy it. Like, I am so excited about about this conversation with you today, Dale, because there are so many nuggets of gold that you have threaded together. And I wonder if you even know your own brilliance of just how effectively you're doing this. And I think it comes back, because I want to touch on your PhD, that initial PhD thesis you were sharing a little bit with me before about studying how men and women, how they react when they're not telling the truth. Have I got that right?
Well, yes, that would be it. That was my dissertation when I was still going to school, is that there's a difference between how males and females react when they're lying. And a lot of it has to do with hormonal input and emotion. I found that in social situations where women were involved in making a decision and they engaged in some form of deception, there was a lot of hormones thrown into their system and made them very easy to detect that they were not telling the truth. And there was an emotional involvement. They're much more emotional in making their decisions. Men, on the other hand, operate at more a baser logic position. They are much slower at making decisions for the most part. I'm dealing in generalities, but they're much slower in making certainly business decisions. They go in a circle. The logic circle, what they will do is they'll solve 15 different problems in a circle until they get to the one that they're trying to solve. And they will finally make a decision on that, and they'll reach a solution. Now, men and women both reach the solution, but women do it in half the time because they have a feeling about it. And because of the hormonal I can't even remember what you call them, but anyway, the hormones that come into the brain causes them to react much faster than a male does. Males are very slow in decision making, which makes it very possible for a woman to be in a leadership role and actually survive and excel because they have that ability. Now they have to develop, just on both sides, both men and women have to learn kind of the other side of it. But what they have to learn isn't, they don't have to swap sides. They just have to be aware of it.
And I wonder if this is one of the challenges with a lot of women's leadership programs, where they get a bunch of women in a room and all the leaders are women and they're all women, and it's great that, you know, that they can feel safe and learn new skills and practice new skills. But are men, who's helping men learn to work better with women? Who's working with all the genders in a room? You know, it's like it's no longer just one or the other. And it never has been just one or the other, of course. But, you know, so I think there's a lot to be, we've got a lot of runway left before we get the training business and the coaching business happening. But I think what I'm also hearing with you and your depth of skill and understanding and research in human behavior is you bring all this to your clients. So you bring this expertise and experience and all the lenses that you can bring to the table as you're developing a business development strategy with your clients. And I think that's a real point of difference for you, Dale, that I'm sensing from you, I'm hearing from you, that is very different from a lot of digital marketing experts who are constantly sending me messages in LinkedIn to offer to do my lead generation for me. And it is so invasive. It is so invasive, this immediate push of, you know, meet with me, I've got what you need. And that's not what I'm hearing you tell me, that you've got skills and expertise that can assist me, but I'm hearing a very different style of approach and a very different, much broader perspective, and you're able to hold multiple perspectives, you know, as you figure out which way is the best way to go. And coming back to your the follow-up communication that you help people with, you know, I think that too is definitely something that our inboxes are full. So when we write emails, they've got to say something of substance, don't they?
Yes. Yeah, you can't plug a bunch of technology in there and expect it to work, because it doesn't work. You know, I've found that as I progress in my own business, I've learned that there are just some. We've just got a couple of minutes left. There are some real tips that people need to understand quickly, and I give those away for free because I think that's important. The other thing I do is I do a lot of free work. Because my impact and my real emphasis is to help people. If you're not into helping them, they're not going to help you. So you've got to be able to say, listen, I know you've got some problems. Let's talk about your problems. Let's find some solutions for them. So I give them some tips right away. And because, as I said, I use LinkedIn in my business almost exclusively, I make sure that their profile is as tight as they can get it. That includes their headline and their about section. And I show people, because I'm a writer, so I show people how to write, how to use the language to their benefit. The next thing I teach them is you've got to be able to go out and find people. So there's prospecting. You need the tools to be able to do that. Now, the easiest way to get those tools is to go find somebody that, you know, that provides training for you. But a lot of times that's very expensive. I mean, it's $1,000, $1,500 for, you know, a 60-day or 90-day training period. That's difficult for a lot of people to overcome. So that's the next step. I teach them how to use LinkedIn to their advantage and how to prospect with it. And then once the prospects happen, then I teach them how to do the communication part of it. There's inexpensive ways to do it, and there's expensive ways to do it, but it all boils down to doing exactly the same thing. I think the basis of every sales, which you have to have sales in order to have business, but the basis is you need to make contact with people. You got to do it 5, 6, 7, 8 times before they're willing to trust you far enough that they would purchase something from you. So I teach them how to do that.
I even heard that it's up to 20 times, 20 touch points now, because people are so bombarded. It's almost like and familiarity has so much to do with who they choose to work with in the end.
Well, it is. And I don't much go over about 7 or 8 contacts. The first one is I always contact and connect with them. I mean, you and I went through this process. We connected first, we established a relationship, and then we started communicating. So those touch points, depending on what you're communicating and how you're doing it, you can reduce those touch points significantly just by being upfront and being yourself and be willing to help. That's the clue. I found out when I started doing this part of it, I found out I didn't need to ask for sales. I didn't need to present what my fee structure was. I started saying, what can I do to help you? I'll help you. Tell me what your pain points are. Let's fix this and let's get it going. And then they come back and say, well, if I wanted to do this, what would you charge? And I say, let's negotiate a fee, because your budget's going to be different than somebody else's. So let's work with it and try to fix it. And I have found that by doing that, I don't really have a problem with getting paid. I mean,
yes,
people I work with, they want to do it.
Yes, and that the essence of giving value or giving first, but I also hear what you're doing really thoroughly, Dale, is that you are asking them to tell you what they need, and you help them define what they need instead of jumping into tell mode. And
yes.
Which is the other thing I see, that we get so overexcited because we can see the solution faster than they can, but they've got to see it for themselves as well. So I'm loving these. They're 101, human relationship skills. They really are. And that you are just a pot of gold when it comes to human relationship skills, Dale. So there is so much. I'm going to go back and re-listen to this and pull out those threads of gold that you've given us today. But I think if we are going to just summarize, I guess, for people who are perhaps coaches or consultants or really getting their business off the ground, and they may be asking for referrals or introductions from their warm market, from people they know, and they're now ready to expand, or they really are at that point where they need to accelerate the sales, the income producing side of the business, or they're going to have to go back to a job, or they're going to have to, do something else, because ultimately, like we said, sales is the engine room of the business, and lead gen is really the, what we need in order to get the sales. And definitely your business and the work that you do is a really integral part of any consulting or sales business, whether it be coaches, consultants, or network marketers. But so where would people connect with you best if they wanted to go deeper with how you work with people and find out more about what you do?
A lot of people rely on websites. I don't. I do have websites, but I don't rely on them because they're basically an internet brochure that goes in the trash. People look at them and they say, that's nice to know. So what I do is I use exclusively, again, LinkedIn. My LinkedIn address is linkedin.com/NIN/Dr. Dale Tennell. And that's how people can reach me. It's the best way to reach me. And the nice part is you begin an immediate conversation, an immediate communication. So,
Yeah.
and one last tip that I'd like to just to expand on: people don't need to be in a rush. You know, if people are sick and tired of their jobs or they want to get away from it and everything else, I always say if you have income and it's keeping you afloat, keep the income until you've established a process that works. And I don't like to see people jump ship and then find themselves holding a bag. You know, I did something like that a long time ago, and it was because I was relying on all of this, all the software, the glitter, things that glitter, all those things out there because I had no idea. The best way to go about it is find yourself a good coach and work with them, and they will drag you across that finish line. When you're totally lost, people sometimes they can't see the forest for the trees. That's the job of the coach to kind of find that path for them.
Yes, absolutely, and that is a whole other conversation again. But I think it comes back to those same principles around how do you choose a coach. I think when we tune in to conversations like this, where we are both genuinely here exploring how do we pull out the threads of gold that, you know, together we would have probably a century worth of experience in business, in sales, in human behavior, in people relationships. And I think that's got to be, you know, like tip number one for how you choose a coach is that person has to genuinely be wanting to help you. Money or no money on the table, they have to be genuinely wanting to help. And definitely that emanates from you in spades, Dale. And I think we've just touched the surface on how we use the technology. And I think you've given a really clear strategy is, you know, find a coach you can trust, someone who knows how to use LinkedIn, also can write, also knows how to use the system and help you learn and help you do it for what your preferences are there, but someone who can literally multitask on the sales development and lead development side and in a nurturing way. Because I think people are sick of being screamed at. So nurturing and time. Yeah, let's take our time to get to know each other.
Yeah, I think that's important.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dale. And that we have gone a little bit over, but if you are watching this, then please do leave a comment and we will be back to answer any questions. Reach out to Dale on LinkedIn. You can put Dale Tunnell in the search bar and he will come up as well there. And also keep tuning in to LinkedIn Live if you're watching here, YouTube if you're over there, and on Facebook, where I will be more experts on to talk about the nuances and the tips and the strategies in sales and marketing and leadership so that we can make 2022 our best year yet. So thanks very much for watching, everyone.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome, Dale.